Hi, everybody. Stacy here with the Community Cats Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, I am the host of the Community Cats Podcast and the presenter here in partnership with Neighborhood Cats. And we are putting on a webinar today called The Drop Trap, a trapper's best friend. And so if that is where you would like to be today, you are in the right place. So I'm going to just do a bit of a tech check here at 2 o'clock as we get started and give you a little tour of the GoToWebinar control panel. If you can see me and hear me, please put that answer and maybe share where you're from in your questions box. So I see a question here. Someone says they are still muted. Everybody will be arriving muted. You are not able to talk during the webinar. We have quite a large group here today. So you'll be able to hear me, but you cannot talk with the whole group. The questions box is going to be your place to communicate with us. So Alyssa, it sounds like you can see me. Thank you, Deb, Kay from Akron, Ohio, West Palm Beach, Staten Island, Gina, Santa Barbara, California, Hayden, you can see me and hear me. That's awesome. Fantastic. Hello from Osprey, Florida. I actually just drove through there about a week and a half ago. And River, New Jersey, Boise, Idaho, Scottsdale, Arizona, Casper, Wyoming, Los Lunas, New Mexico. Tech is okay. Excellent. Excellent. While driving across country. So you are destinationless. Victoria, British Columbia, fantastic. San Antonio, Delaware, Melbourne, Australia. Wonderful, wonderful. Excellent. Denise, welcome. Carol, welcome. Dawn from New Jersey, welcome. Pittsburgh, sounded good in Pittsburgh. More from San Antonio. Excellent, excellent. Whoopsie. Super, excellent. We've got an incredible number of people here today. Thank you so much, Danny. Hello, it's great to see you there. Super, excellent. So it sounds like everybody knows where to go to put their questions. So that questions box is going to be your best friend today. If you have any questions with regards to the content, Susie Richmond is going to be out there in the background helping with those specific techie type, or not techie questions, but the specific questions, trapper questions that you might have. So if there are some fine points or follow-up questions that you have, put them in the questions box. And Susie's going to do her best to keep up with the questions. If we can't keep up with all the questions, never fear. We capture all those questions, we work through them, and we usually try to get back to people within a week or two after the presentation. So just be patient if for some reason you don't get an immediate response. But I tell you, Susie is quick on the draw out there, so she tries her best to stay on top of everything. Kristen is our technical cat. So if you have problems with the video or with the audio, also put your questions in there, and Kristen is going to be the person responding to those questions in there. So we have those folks in the behind the scenes. Another part of the GoToWebinar control panel that I just want to bring to your attention is the handout section. And so down in the handout section, we have one handout. And so I highly recommend you go in there and you download that handout. So please do that. That is I believe it's the copies of the slides for today's presentation. So you have that to take away with you. We also have a chat component from our standpoint. So our staff will be able to post key links and information out into that chat. So Kristen will be sending chats out to you so you can keep an eye on that. I'm also going to do a poll. We have a poll feature that we use, and so I'm going to launch a poll for everybody today, and you'll be able to vote in that poll. So this is what we want to know with the group today. So how many cats have you caught with a drop trap? None yet? 1 to 10, 11 to 50, or more than 50? How many cats have you caught with a drop trap? None yet? 1 to 10, 11 to 50, or more than 50? So we have 50% of you have not used the drop trap yet. So this is an excellent time to learn about it and get comfortable with it. And then we have 1 to 10, 24%, 23% have done 11 to 50, have trapped 11 to 50, and then 4% have trapped more than 50. So thank you so much for participating in the poll, sharing that information. That is very good information. And then I'm going to hide the results, and then I'm going to do one more quick poll. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. So who are you? You a volunteer trapper, community cat program manager, community cat advocate? I take care of a colony or colony of cats, and I work in a spay-neuter clinic or an animal shelter. Just trying to understand how we have folks represented today. So we have about 66% of folks call themselves a volunteer trapper, but we also have quite a few people, 46% saying I take care of a colony or colonies of cats, community cat advocate, 25%, community cat program manager, 12%, working in a spay-neuter clinic or animal shelter, 11%. So this is great. This will help give Brian and Susie just a sense of who's out there in the cyber world and participating in our webinar today. So I'm going to hide those results, and we're going to be back right here on this. So now that I have given you the tour of the GoToWebinar control panel, hopefully you have everything that you need to know there. I'm also going to say we do have we have some videos in this presentation. If for some reason you might be on a phone or in a low Wi-Fi area, if for some reason your GoToWebinar, the video freezes on you, don't panic. Just exit out of GoToWebinar and re-log in, and you'll be perfectly fine. And our recordings will have the video perfectly, so you can always go back and see the recording. You'll have access to the recording within 24 hours, and then we'll also be posting it on our TNR resources page on the Community Cats Podcast website, as well as on the Community Cats Podcast YouTube page. So for those of you who don't know, the Community Cats Podcast has over 400 episodes. You can subscribe to it at all of your favorite places where you subscribe to podcasts. And we also do these special events like this webinar that go up on our YouTube page as well as on our website. And so it's a not to be missed. So you'll be able to share this with your friends and family. If you find that there's valuable information, we please want this information shared with others. So just wanted to pass along that information. I also want to do a shout out and a thank you to Tomahawk Traps, who has been a sponsor of many of our events, and they continue to be very supportive of our efforts with regards to getting education out about trap, neuter, return. And Kristen will be posting a code in the chat box if you want to get 10% off of an order with Tomahawk Traps. It's DCNC21, but Kristen will be posting that in the chat. So if you do want to order Drop Trap through them, you'll be able to access that discount. So without further delay, I want to get started on the Drop Trap, a trapper's best friend. And I'm just going to share a little bit about Brian Cordes and Susan Richmond. Brian, if you want to switch the slide to the next one. So Susan Richmond is the executive director of Neighborhood Cats. She joined the organization after over 20 years running a major New York City shelter and nonprofit veterinary clinic. At Neighborhood Cats, she has led multiple TNR projects in New York City and northern New Jersey, managed a program for providing scholarships to veterinarians for training in high-volume spay-neuter of community cats, and co-authored the Humane Society of the United States online course on TNR. In her spare time, she can often be found trapping feral cats on Maui. And then we have Brian Cordes, who is the co-founder and national programs director for Neighborhood Cats, a leading community cat advocacy group with hands-on programs in New York City, New Jersey, and Maui. Currently, he and his wife, Susan Richmond, live in Hawaii and can usually be found trapping cats or releasing them after they've been neutered. In between stints with Neighborhood Cats, he served as a grants manager for PetSmart Charities, overseeing over $21 million in TNR and spay-neuter projects. He has produced many of the leading educational materials on trap, neuter, return, including award-winning books and videos, has assisted numerous communities in setting up large-scale TNR programs, and is a frequent presenter on community cat issues. Brian has a Bachelor of Arts degree from Cornell University and a JD from the University of California, Berkeley. And at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you everybody for taking the time out today. I think if you're doing trapping and TNR, you're going to really find some good information today. So as Stacy said, make sure you download the handout because it's a copy of all the slides that you're seeing today. So you don't have to sit there scribbling notes, and um, all the links that are in the presentation are live on that PDF. So you don't have to worry about that either. And then just to give you an overview of what we're going to do today, the first part of the presentation is going to be geared towards people who are beginning, who haven't done drop trapping or who have only maybe done a little bit of it. And so even those of you who are in that 1 through 50 category can probably pick up a few pointers about best practices. After that part of the presentation, we're going to go over different equipment and hacks and things that you can use to expand your drop trapping and make it better. And then we're going to go into some very advanced techniques, which are good for people who are starting out to know, but probably not something you want to try right away, but a place that you can head towards. And for those of you who have done a lot of drop trapping, you might find some of this stuff kind of fun. Okay, so let's get going. And the first question is, of course, well, what is a drop trap? And this little kind of cartoon is just a very, just to simplify it, it's really the old cat going under a box and somebody propping the box up on a stick and pulling it with a string. You're basically drawing the cat under the trap, and that's exactly what it is. It's a string attached to a stick, in this case called a prop stick, and when the cat is in there with his face in the bowl and eating, you're going to pull the string and the trap's going to fall over the cat. So it's really as simple as that. Now, fortunately, we've come a long way from cardboard boxes and sticks, and now we have for the last, I'm not sure how many years, but for the last at least 5 to 10, we have a live, a commercially available drop trap, and the best one on the market is, and everything else is really just a copy of this. So you want to get it from the best manufacturer, the highest quality, and that's Tomahawk Live Trap. This is the model DT1, Drop Trap 1. It's 36 inches square, or 91 centimeters for those of you outside the US. And you can order it at livetrap.com. I believe right now it's selling for $125, but don't quote me on that. And you can see that it folds down. That's one of its great advantages. Over on the right there, it gets quite flat, so makes it very easy to transport. The three main parts of the trap that you want to be aware of are that side door, and that's once the trap falls down over a cat, that's where the cat's going to exit, and it's going to go through the side door and into your box trap, or that has a rear door, or into a transfer cage. There's the anchor flap in the back, and that's where you're going to put weight, so that once the trap falls down over the cat, you don't see him running down the street pushing the trap with him, but it stays in place. And then finally, there's the prop stick, which is you use it to raise the trap and attach a string. Now, there is another, this is the 36-inch square one, or 91 centimeters. There is another version of the trap, and people ask about it, so that's why I want to talk about it a little bit. And that's also sold by Tomahawk Live Trap, and it's the model DT2, and it's 48 inches square, or what does that come to? About 122 centimeters square. So it's a foot wider in every direction. And a lot of people are like, wonder, well, why wouldn't I get the 4-foot version instead of the 3-foot version? And this is why. So you can see this is a 3-foot trap, and you can see that Kitty on the right there got hit by the trap on the way down. And even the best of us, this is one of our trappings, and what we were trying to do is catch these two older kittens at the same time. You can see the black one in the trap and the tabby on his way out. So we were trying to time the drop of the trap so that we caught both of them, but we made a mistake, and the tabby obviously got hit on the way out. So he was fine, didn't hurt him at all. But if this had been the larger trap, it might have been a different story. And the reason is because of the weight. The model DT1 is 14 pounds. The model DT2 is almost double the weight. It's 26 pounds. So that extra foot is creating almost twice as much weight. And like I say, even with experts, sometimes mistakes happen. You'll probably make fewer mistakes if you have a 4-foot square trap, but if you do make a mistake, it could have a lot more severe consequences. Also, because it's 26 pounds, it's kind of a pain to carry around. So totally up to you, of course, and your needs and your experience, but we do not recommend the D22. Now, there's those of you out there who are probably very handy, and you may want to build your own. We don't advise that because the one from Tomahawk, that, by the way, we helped to design, it's very easy to clean. You know, you can spray it with bleach afterwards, and of course wash the bleach off, or you can spray it with Rescue or some type of antibacterial. It's very easy to keep clean. With these do-it-yourself traps, they're almost impossible to sterilize. But nonetheless, if that's your interest, and in the early days of drop traps, before there was one that was commercially available, we used to build our own, and this you can see is one of them. You can find plans online. There's one made out of PVC piping that is foldable, by Dr. Lisa Pearson, and the link is there. And there's another one made of wood, 3-foot square, that's not foldable. It's very easy to make. It's very hard to transport unless you got a 3-foot square space. Well, these days people have SUVs, but if you have a normal car, it's kind of hard to fit it in there. We took a wood one back in the early days, like you see here, and we just cut this hinge, cut the wood supports in half and put hinges on them. So it made it a little creaky, but it did make it so you could fold it. But anyway, there's the links if that interests you. So why would you want to use a drop trap instead of a box trap, or what's the whole reason that drop traps exist? And it has to do with the psychology of cats and the fact that they're, as you can see with this kitty here, she's a little reluctant to enter, and we do find that. But this kitty would be most likely be much less afraid of going under a drop trap as opposed to entering a box trap. And why is that? And I think it's because the drop traps feel much more open to them when they go under them. There's 3 sides that offer an exit, so it feels like an open space. Whereas when they enter a box trap, like you see here, they're aware this is a long, narrow space, that there's only one exit that's behind them. So they're much more afraid to enter a box trap. And that's why they need to be made really hungry before you do a large trapping with box traps. Because if they're not hungry, most of them will not overcome their fear of going into a box trap. But on the other hand, with drop traps, since they're not that wary of them, they don't need to be as hungry. If they didn't eat that day, they'll most likely go under. And even if they did eat that day, if you have something that is really attractive to them, sardines or something really tasty that they aren't used to getting, they may go under anyway, whether they've eaten or not, because of the so much less fear. So you can also, so this is the drop traps are really good. Like if you have uncooperative feeders who are not withholding the food, well, if you know the normal time of day that these feeders are going out and putting out the food, you can go drop trap the cats before they get there, because they wouldn't have eaten that day yet. So that's one way to work around people who are not cooperating with you. Also, if you can't identify the feeders, if you go early enough before whoever it is comes around with the food, you can drop trap the cats even though you didn't withhold food the day before. As long as they didn't eat that day, there's a good chance they'll go under. It's all the better if you can withhold food for longer, but drop traps are really effective when you can't control the feeding. So what are some of the uses? Well, there's targeted trapping, which is could be you're after, that means you're after particular cats, not just any of them. So you might be after a pregnant cat. There might be a mom and kittens. You want to get that family. There may be a kitty that's injured. Perhaps these are the last cats in the colony that have to be fixed, and you're trying to pick them out instead of trying to retrap everybody. And also they're the ones that wouldn't go into the box traps in the first place. So targeted trapping is probably one of the most effective uses. And excuse me just a moment. So you can also catch large numbers of cats. If you're doing a mass trapping, you're trying to get the whole colony at once. And we'll demonstrate that, how you can catch a whole bunch at first, right at the beginning. They're also good for finishing up a mass trapping. So maybe you've been out there for a few hours and you got 15 out of the 19 cats, and those last 4 are hanging around, or at least 2 or 3 of them, but they're not going into the box traps. Well, we'll often break out the drop trap at the end of a mass trapping instead of waiting for the next day, and pick off a couple of them that way. Some trappers love the drop trap so much that they actually don't use box traps. They just use a drop trap and save their box traps as kind of transfer cages. So I want to show you, and we're going to break this down into a lot of detail, so not to worry about capturing every detail here. But this is a short video of a very basic drop trapping. The kitty you see here was an older kitten, probably 7-8-month-old kitten, who appeared in a colony where we live in Maui. And the colony's got about 20 cats. So we needed to pick him out. We didn't want to have to put lots of traps out and hope that he went into one of them. And you'll notice that we put out a very large plate of food, and that's because, well, you don't know when your target cat's going to go in, and you need to have enough food there so everybody can come in and have a bite, and there's still something left for your target kitty. So let's have a look at this, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so there you see the trapping of Wonka. And like I say, we're gonna break this down. Just wanted you to see the whole process first. So let me say, especially for those of you who haven't drop trapped before, don't use it for the first time on the cat you've been after for 5 years. That's a big mistake. It's not a complicated process, but the first time you do it, it's gonna feel awkward, and that's when you're gonna make mistakes. So practice, um, even once. Try it on a cat you've already fixed, or maybe one you want to catch, and update their vaccines. If you can't find any volunteers, then use your pet cat, and just, you know, he'll be a little frightened, but give him a big treat afterwards, and he'll forgive you. But especially practice not the two main parts are dropping the trap, you know, pulling the string, the timing of it, and then the transfer. So if you do it once or twice, you'll feel really comfortable. If you do it for the very first time on that kitty, that is the reason you bought the drop trap, uh, again, your chances of making a mistake are much higher than if you just test it out 1 or 2 times beforehand. So in preparing for the drop trapping, it's, you know, this is what's ideal. As I said, the drop trap is great in situations where you can't do what's ideal. But if you can, what you want is the cats to be on a feeding pattern. So they're eating at the same time, same place daily, or as close to that as you can make it for a couple weeks before the trapping. That way, you know, okay, the kitties show up at 9 a.m. Like with Wonka, we know that the cats are fed at dusk, so we knew to go and set up half an hour before dusk, before the cats started gathering. If you can withhold the food, that's great. At least don't feed them the day you're drop trapping. And if you can withhold the food for 24 hours so that they're, you know, pretty hungry, that is ideal. Then, you know, if they're really hungry, they just go flying into the drop trap, and you don't have to wait for them to, you know, cautiously approach. So scout the location where you're going to put the trap, and that's real important because you can't just put a drop trap anywhere. You need to have good visibility. So you need to be able to see the drop trap from wherever you're standing, which is going to be some distance away, far enough that the cats aren't frightened by you. Or you could hide like Susie did with the trapping Wonka. She hid in a car and was able to be real close, but you need to have good visibility. Unless you're using a drop trap pad, which is something we're going to talk about later in the presentation, you need to have a flat surface like you see here, this concrete, because you can't, if the drop trap falls down on an uneven surface, that creates openings on the ground level. Well, if a kitty can get his paw through, or his head, he's going to be able to squeeze out. So the drop trap has to land on a flat surface. You want the trap to be either in the feeding area or nearby. And remember that you're transferring into either a box trap or a transfer cage through the side door. So you want to make sure there's enough space to the side. You can, as you get more comfortable using drop traps, you can learn to rotate them so that you can put the drop trap in the best spot for trapping. And if there isn't enough room to the side, you can rotate the drop trap. But at least in the beginning, try to make sure you have enough space where you can just put your transfer cage right there. Here's an equipment list that you know, these are the basics you want to have with you when you head out there. You want a string or a cord, a minimum of 50 feet. Now make sure it's really a heavy duty cord, like a nylon cord that's you know, got some heft to it. That's not going to, don't use like a regular string that after a few uses might snap on you. You know, you definitely don't want that to happen. So make sure you have a good strong cord that's at least 50 feet so you can get pretty far away. Have a heavy object to use for the anchor weight, a blanket or large sheet to cover the drop trap. And we prefer blankets because they're a little heavier. It makes it easier to cover quickly, to throw them. You want a large plastic or non-breakable bowl or dish. It's really important that it's non-breakable, because Kitty may start running around after he's been trapped, and you don't want like something glass in there that can hurt him. Lots of bait, especially if you're doing a target cat, and there's lots of other cats who may come in. You need your box traps that have guillotine style rear doors or transfer cages, 1 per cat. Sheets for covering the box traps. Trap dividers, and that's so that if you drop trap more than 1 cat and 2 of them get into the same box trap, or if one of them, we'll talk about a little bit later, isn't moving from the drop trap, you can give them a little nudge with the trap divider. We find binoculars are really helpful, especially if you're trying to pick out cats that haven't been fixed yet and you need to look for ear tips. And it's optional, but usually very helpful and highly recommended when you're starting out and you're beginning with the drop trap, is to have a second person with you. It makes everything much, much easier. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on actually assembling the drop trap, because Tomahawk has a great video, and you'll find the link on this slide, or go to their website and click on instructions. And they go step by step on how to unfold it and how to put it together. My one comment at this point will be that, again, once you've done it a couple of times, it takes approximately 1 to 2 minutes to put it up. It's really quite simple. It's just two pieces, the top and the bottom. Okay, so now let's break down that video and go through the steps. So we talked about finding a good spot that's level, enough space to put your transfer cage or box trap, and that's visible from a distance. So you're gonna put down your anchor weight that you see in the back there. You see those couple of small cinder blocks, and raise the prop stick up, and then tie your string onto the prop stick like you see here. Then you're gonna bait the trap. And if you're doing, like I said, if you're doing a targeted trapping, put a generous amount of bait. You don't want the bait to run out before your target cat goes in. As a tip, even for those of you who are advanced, you're going to have more success drawing cats into the drop trap if you use a bowl that's familiar to them. So try to use something that they're used to eating out of every day, and put your bait in that if it's big enough, because that little bit of familiarity may make the difference. Again, make sure it's not breakable. Now, there's 2 schools of thought on what kind of bait to use, and so it requires a little bit of experimentation. We prefer, in general, using food that is very enticing to the cats, like a normal bait, tuna or sardines, roasted chicken. Here in Hawaii, the cats seem to have a real predilection for Spam, of all things. So something they're not used to, and something that's really going to attract them. That's one school of thought. Another school of thought is you're trying to keep things as normal as possible, so you just use whatever food they normally get. And really, people have been successful doing both. So try one. If that's not working, try the other. Okay, you're going to take your bait and center it along the back of the trap, right in the middle. Okay, very important that it's in that position. And then very lightly, and I emphasize lightly, sprinkle some bait around the floor of the trap, a little bit outside of it. And that's just to create a little trail that will draw the cats in. Just don't put big amounts so that they're full before they get to the main bait bowl. Okay, last steps. You're going to position the box trap and the transfer cage. So you can't see it in this photo, but you'll see it in another one. The cage that I'm going to, instead of saying box trap, transfer cage every time, I'm just going to say box trap, but you know that you could also use a transfer cage. Have that within reach. It's especially important if you're doing this alone. You don't want to drop the trap and then go run and have to get a a trap to transfer them into, you want that trap to be within preferably arm's reach of the drop trap so that you can just reach over and get it. And the sheet that you're going to use to cover that. Then you have to move far enough away yourself so that the cats are comfortable. Have the blanket that you're going to cover the drop trap with right by your side, so you can run over and quickly cover it, so that it's just like with a regular box trap. When you cover it with a sheet, they calm down once they're covered, so you want to make that happen. Now hold the string taut, and that's super important. Like you can, if you've got the string lying on the ground and then your cat goes in and you reach over to get the string and he sees you, that could, in that moment, he could be out. So, and then also by the time you pull the string taut, you might make some noise. Have the string in your hand at all times and have it taut, so that just a slight yank is going to pull that trap down. And again, practice that, get the feel of it, because it's really important. If there's a hitch in your motion for even a split second, and you're going to see later in the presentation how a split second can make a huge difference, especially with these really difficult to catch cats. You don't want that. You want the string so that it's you could literally like flick your wrist and the trap's going down. And then finally, be patient. Don't get over anxious. Don't be concerned that, my target cat's not getting in there. Just give it time and let the process play itself out. So in this particular photo, you'll see this kitty is ear tipped already. So not a cat that we're after. In this particular case, the cat that we were after is over there on the right in the red circle. Again, especially when you're drop trapping the last cats in a colony after the rest of them are all fixed, these are usually the hardest cats. There's a reason why they're the last ones, and they're just extra wary of everything. So it's a good thing if your target cat is seeing another cat eating in the drop trap and then leaving, because that makes your target cat feel like it's safe to go in there. So actually it's a good thing that this other kitty went in, and you see there's tons of food, so he's not going to eat it all. And when he's done, he leaves, okay? And then eventually your target cat decides to go in. So here's the part of drop trapping that once you get all the mechanical stuff down is the hardest. And that's at what moment do you pull the string? And this is where patience really comes in. This cat, a lot of people would be tempted to pull it, and it would be too soon. And why? Because look how tense the cat is. His body posture is in motion, tense, checking out the food, but not head in the bowl yet. So if you pulled the string now, and this was a pretty, a fairly athletic cat, believe it or not, she would have time to get out before the trap hit the ground. This is when you pull the string. Now look at her body posture. It's relaxed. She's engaged in the food. Her attention is on eating. She's fully within the trap, but most of all, she's not paying attention to the trap anymore. She's only paying attention to the food. So this is when you pull the string. Now, look at that red arrow, okay? Notice how the drop trap has not hit the ground yet, right? It's a moment away. But look at where Kitty is. Kitty is already heading out the door. And if she hadn't been relaxed and engaged in the food, she probably would have gotten out, because it's that, look how quickly they react. This is literally half a second after the or less than half a second even after the string was pulled. And if she had another half a second, she probably would have at least gotten part of her body outside the trap. Once you've got her in there, then you need to, you want to cover her quickly. like I said, it will calm them down. You know, it's just like a regular box trap. You know, you don't want them thrashing around in there and potentially hurting themselves. Once in a while, I've seen it maybe once or twice in all the drop trapping I've done that a cat will get trap burn, but it's quite rare, and it'll be even happen less often if you cover quickly. Also, notice in this photo how in the lower right corner of the slide, you can see where the transfer cage is. So this is our trapper Jade, and once she's got the drop trap covered, all she has to do is, because she's trapping alone, all she has to do is reach over to grab that transfer cage. So think about that when you're setting up. Now, if you have more than one cat in the trap, you're really going to need to cover it quickly and also put weight on top of the trap, like your foot. If you're alone, think about having some kind of heavy object nearby that you can then put on top of the drop trap. Because the danger is when you have more than one cat in a trap, especially if they're two adults, it's possible that one cat could push the trap upwards in an effort to get out and create just enough of an opening on the ground for the other cat to get under and get out. Again, that's rare, but be aware that that's a possibility when there's more than one cat. By themselves, a cat cannot push the trap up and get under, but if there's two of them, that can happen. Okay, so now I want to show you another video that of a drop trapping. Now this time the target cat is that black cat that you see sitting on the post to the upper right above the trap. Now she's pregnant, and this is a colony that's all fixed, obviously except for her. During the video, I want you to notice a couple of things. Notice how she waits quite a bit. We don't, we're not going to make you sit there through the whole thing, but she does notice how she waits until the other cats are finished eating before she makes her move to go in. That's where you have to be patient. And also watch how we are patient when she does start to go in, even though we've been waiting for a while, and we don't pull the string until her face is fully in the bowl. So watch how she waits, and watch when we pull the trigger on this one. So you're going to pull the string.
What's that?
You're going to pull the string. I'll say when. Pull. Okay, did you also notice how the box trap was real close to the drop trap? Okay, so now we've talked about, the polling and the moment of truth. Let's talk about the transfer and break that down step by step, because uh, this is the part where it's your chances of the cat escaping, are highest. But if you go through the steps, you can basically eliminate any chance of the cat escaping once the trap is down. So let's go through that. So first, you're going to line up the rear door of your box trap, the one with the sliding guillotine door. You're going to line that up with the side door of the drop trap. Now, word to the wise, having actually made this mistake, if you've been using your box trap, if you've had it set, you figure, well, I have a box trap around, I might as well set it. And then you decide to transfer the cat into it, make sure the front door is closed, because I can tell you from personal experience, there's no worse feeling than successfully seeing your cat transfer into the box trap and then watching him fly out the front door. So do make sure you double check I do it now all the time. I just always check that the front door is closed. Now on the drop trap, what you see highlighted here is what's called a spring clip. And the spring clips are used to attach the roof of the drop trap to the main frame, but there's also two extra ones, one on each side of the side door, and that's what's in the red circle. You're going to take those spring clips and you're going to attach them to the box trap that you're transferring into, one on each side. And the reason for that is it eliminates the possibility of the door shifting, one of either the drop trap or the box trap shifting and creating a gap during the transfer to the side that a cat could slip through. You will not have a cat escape if you use these spring clips. Now, the trick is don't pull them too tight, because otherwise you won't be able to open the doors. The doors will be pressed too hard against each other. So just a few, as you can see, a few rows down. Just not so loose that they don't really hold anything in place, but you don't need to pull them as tight as you can. If you do pull them too tight, don't worry about it. You'll be able to readjust. It's better to make a mistake in that direction than in having them too loose. But that's why we put those spring clips there, to prevent escapes during transfers. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to cover the sides of the box trap. Very important. Leave the end furthest from the drop trap, which is on a box trap going to be the front door. Leave that uncovered. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create an illusion so that for the cat in the drop trap, that they're going to see light at the end of the box trap and think that's my way out. So you're trying to create that illusion that it's an exit. And the more you cover the drop trap up and the box trap, except for the back, what's now the back, you're going to make that illusion stronger. Now, once you've done that, you can lift both the rear door of the box trap and the side door of the drop trap. Try to stay out of sight and just be patient and wait. So in this particular photo, not the best way to do it because too much is uncovered. I believe the photographer just wanted everybody to be able to see what was happening with the cat. So let me show you a slide where the covering is done properly. So that would be this. So you can see how the kitty in the drop trap can't see me who's doing the transfer, and everything's covered except the back of the cage that the cat's transferring into. So most cats are going to dash towards that, what they think is an exit. Okay, so going back to our sample kitty, you can see she's entered the box trap. At that point, you're going to shut and lock the rear door of the box trap, make sure it's locked. And if there's more than one cat, don't forget to also close the drop trap side door. Okay, so do both doors. I always just do both doors. That's, again, it's always good to get into habits. So I just automatically shut both doors. And then I don't have to try to remember how many cats are in the drop trap. So before you do anything, then disengage the spring clips. You can then fully cover the box trap. And if there's more than one cat in the drop trap, you just keep repeating the transfer process, transferring one at a time. And like I mentioned before, if you end up getting more than one cat into the box trap, that's why you bring some trap dividers along with you so you can separate them. And then when you're back in your holding space and enclosed space where it's safe, you can do a trap to trap transfer of the extra cat. So question always comes up, what if they won't go in? You know, what if they just won't move? And did you notice in the last video of trapping the pregnant black cat, how Susie started to pull the blanket towards her when the kitty didn't move in right away? And that's because feral cats, when they're captured, they tend to move from light to dark. They like to be covered. So if you slowly pull the blanket towards you, if the cat wants to remain covered, they have to move towards you and towards the exit door. So try that. Now, if you have your helper with you, they can bend down on the side of the drop trap opposite the side door, and just by looking in, frighten the cat to go running in the other direction. You can try spritzing a little water, move an object like a stick towards the cat, although don't touch them. You know, you don't want to hurt them, may take any chances of hurting them. You're just trying to scare them a little and direct them. If you have trap dividers, you can corral them towards the side door. You can do that with just regular trap dividers, but they don't quite reach the bottom and they're easy for the cat to get around, but they can still be pretty effective because usually the cat just wants to get away from you. But Tomahawk does make trap dividers now, especially for drop traps. And if you get two of them, they cover the width of the trap. So you can slowly sort of squeeze the cat towards the side door. So if you're interested in those, go to the Tomahawk website and look for drop trap accessories, and you'll see these, you know, giant looking pitchfork things. And but do realize you need two of them if you want to effectively pen the cat, you know, separate the trap in half and force the cat in that direction. Now, if worse comes to worse, you're alone, you can't do some of these things, the cats just won't move, then you just have to wait. And the cat will do the transfer eventually, usually sooner than you think, but at a certain point, that's all you can do is just wait. Okay, so now we've gone through the basics of drop trapping. So let's take a little quiz, and let me introduce you to Farley the Feral. So he's the kitty we're after, and you're going to use the chat to answer these questions. Okay. So question number one: you're about to pull the string. What's wrong with this picture? And we'll give you a moment to look at it and give us your answers. Put that in I guess the questions. Yeah, he's not in the right position. Okay, just a little bit more.
So,
there's more than
yeah,
one.
you're looking at them, Brian? You're looking at the answers?
Yeah, huh?
Okay, great.
Okay, there's one that people haven't gotten yet. I'll give you a little more time. Most of you have done it well. There's three things wrong here, and you've gotten two of them so far. Okay, I'll stop torturing you. All right, most of you got that Kitty's in the exact wrong position. He's facing the front, he's facing going out the trap. So it would be very easy for him to take a quick step and be out. So he's facing the wrong way. He's not in the back of the trap where he should be. The food bowl is not in the right place. It's in the center, but it's not in the center on the back. Okay, somebody just got it. And the third thing is, yes, it's a glass bowl. It's not, you don't want a breakable bowl in the drop trap. So those three things: bad positioning for the cat, bowl's in the wrong place, bowl is breakable. Okay, this cat's going to get out. Okay, let's try this. What's wrong with this picture? Uneven surface. Yep, somebody got that. Up. Okay, just give you another moment. Okay, actually somebody saw a third thing that I hadn't noticed, but you're right. Okay, so uneven surface, right? I mean, that trap is going to fall over a pothole, and you know, that's going to make it easy for Kitty to escape. You don't have any weight on the anchor flap, so if Farley is particularly motivated and strong, he's going to start dragging the trap away, maybe to a spot that's uneven if it wasn't already. And somebody actually made a good observation, which is it doesn't look like the string is taut. And yeah, it's lying on, you know, a taut string would be probably just a little bit off the ground, right? So this string is going to has a little bit of a hitch in it. It's going to take a moment to tighten it, so you want to avoid that. But the main thing is, the worst part about this is the uneven surface, and of course then Farley, being a clever feral, is going to find his way out very quickly. Okay, one more. About to pull. Is there anything wrong with this one? Let's give you another moment. And yeah, no, I mean, somebody mentioned that there's nothing wrong with this one, or there isn't supposed to be. Again, the observation about the string might be correct. It looks like it's a little tighter now. It's still on the ground, but it's not slack. That Farley may be a little tense and not fully in the bowl has to do with him being a stuffed animal. He's supposed to have his head all the way in the bowl. So no, this is what it should look like. You've got you're on a flat surface. The string is tight. The bowl is not breakable. It's centered in the back. He's got his head in it. You're good to go at this point. And there's our little Farley the feral, who's now been transferred into his cage. You'll notice he looks a little more plaintive than he had before. Okay, so that concludes kind of the beginning part of this presentation. And now we're going to move into more advanced stuff. For those of you who have not drop trapped yet, please, you know, don't leave, because you'll see tricks you can use right away. And also, it may help you to know what you'll be able to do with this once you've done this, you know, maybe several times. Doesn't take long to become good at this. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of having a flat surface. Sometimes you don't have a flat, you can't get a flat surface. So this is a mass trapping that Susie and I did in the woods, and you can see the ground is extremely uneven. And these are cats we caught and are about to let go. But again, we didn't get every single one of them. There's still a few left, and we don't want to have to re-trap everybody. So we were faced with this problem, which is, how do we drop trap on a ground that's this rutted and uneven and just isn't suitable for a drop trap? And the answer is, we created what we call a drop trap pad. And that's the wooden surface that you see the drop trap mounted on right now. So this is a foldable 4-foot by 4-foot plywood surface that we can put anywhere, and then use it to you know, have the trap fall down on. It's made out of 2 pieces of 1/2-inch thick plywood. Each measures 2 feet by 4 feet. They're attached together with door hinges to create that 4 foot by 4 foot surface. Remember, the drop trap is 3 foot by 3 foot. And we are working on a form of drop pad that will be commercially available, but it's really turning out to be very tricky. And but hopefully we'll have that for you soon. So keep an eye out on Tomahawk. We'll announce it too if you're on our email list. So this is kind of a home hack that we've been using in the meantime. A little awkward because plywood's heavy, but it does fold in half, and when we really need it, it's great to have. So in that exact same location, this is where we set up the drop trap pad. And you can see how much space is underneath the wood. But now this trap is going to fall on a flat surface. Sometimes, because the drop trap pad is hinged, you need to wedge some rocks underneath it to keep it level. Like in a situation like this, it won't always just lie flat. It might bend a little bit. So be aware of that. But as you can see, it worked quite well. The drop trap just landed, and we were able to pick off the kitties we wanted in this manner. It's also useful when the ground is not necessarily uneven, but it's too soft. Maybe it's kind of mulchy, or the ground is soft for whatever reason, and the cats, or there's huge layer of leaves all over the place. And if even though the drop trap falls down flat, the cats might be able to dig out from under it quickly. So this creates a hard surface, obviously, that they can't dig out from under. Those of you who are interested in building this yourself, it's pretty easy. I'm not going to go through all the details, but I just want to show you that make sure you download the handout, the copy of these slides, because we've got the instructions here on how to do this. Here's the materials that you need. As you can see, not very much. This is where you put the hinges on the bottom side of the drop trap pad. And then you're going to make little loops with cable ties in the rear corners of the pad so that you can, this is for attaching the drop trap onto it. Again, just download this and you'll have the plans. And this is how you attach the drop trap. You run a cable tie through the loop that you've created and then through the back of the drop trap. Notice that it's very loose, that the orange cable tie is not tied tightly because you need the drop trap to be able to fall freely. But what this does is it prevents the cats from pulling the drop trap or pushing the drop trap off of the pad onto the rutted, uneven surface that you're trying to avoid, and that they could then escape. Okay, let's talk a little bit about nighttime trapping. That's always a question that comes up. Can you trap at night? Are the cats going to be afraid of the light? And by far, as with everything, there's probably a handful of cats who would be frightened by lights, but the vast majority are not. And so you can do it one of two ways. This is what we like to do. We like to get one of these hanging flashlights, put it on the front of the trap, and then just have it shine into the trap itself. You can also use your car's headlamps if you're in position to do that. We like to be in the car whenever possible when we're drop trapping because it hides us from the cats. So if you're okay with leaving your engine on and the headlights, you can do it that way, or just get a simple hanging light like this. So no reason that nighttime should deter you. Now here's a piece of equipment that is going to come in very handy for those of you, and there's a lot of you, who don't have the standard size Tomahawk trap. So the opening of the DT1 drop trap is designed for the Tomahawk traps that have 10-inch wide and 12-inch high rear doors. And that's what the opening is for. Now, if you have a gravity trap, either the True Catch 30 LTD or similar, or the new Tomahawk gravity trap GT606, their openings are smaller. They're 9" by 11 inches. So if you try to transfer from the drop trap into one of these gravity traps, you're going to have 1-inch gaps on either side of the door. And I have seen cats escape, especially like, say, a 4 or 5-month-old kitten. They're able to, believe it or not, they're able to squeeze through that 1-inch gap. So to eliminate that as a risk, get one of these, I think it's a $10 or $15 piece of equipment called the drop trap transfer opening reducer. And there's the code for it, and it's at livetrap.com. And you just insert that into behind the side door, and boom, you have the right size opening for the traps you're using. If you're going to be using gravity traps and the normal size Tomahawk traps, then just put this door reducer in and use it for all of them. Works just as well for the bigger openings as the smaller openings. Big trick with these is where people mess up is you have to put the insert behind the door grooves, not in the door grooves, but behind them, so that it does not interfere with the action of the side door going up and down. That's very important. Now, there was a problem with the insert sliding out the bottom when people moved. They picked up the trap to move it somewhere else. I think that Tomahawk has solved that problem, but in case they haven't or not to your satisfaction, just cable tie this insert onto the main frame of the drop trap. But again, make sure the cable tie is behind the door groove. And once you've attached it, slide the side door up and down a couple of times to make sure that it's not interfering with the action. It's a great piece. Like I said, we put one on our drop trap and we just leave it there. So whatever we're transferring into, we don't have a problem with the opening being too large. Okay, let's talk remote control, because that's always a topic that people are, especially guys, are fascinated with mechanical things like this. Plenty of women too, but let's go over this, because in our opinion, and again, this is a matter of opinion, we're not that crazy about the drop trap remote control, and I'll talk to you about why. But it is a popular item, and a lot of people are fascinated with it, so we want to kind of go over the pluses and minuses of it. So here it is set up. You can see on the top of the drop trap that little black box. That's the trigger. And if you look to the right, lower right on your slide, you can see how the trigger works. Also, there's the prop stick, and that goes obviously from the ground up through the drop trap, and it has that little crossbar just below the trigger. And look at that photo to the lower right. You see that pin, that cylinder that is sticking out from the black box and going underneath the prop stick, the top of it. So the way the remote control works is you're standing 100 feet away. That's one of the advantages, is you can get pretty far away. You squeeze your trigger. It sends a signal to this black box. That signal turns on a motor, and the motor pulls that cylinder, that pin back, right? So now, since that pin is holding the drop trap up, once it pulls back into the black box, the drop trap slides down the prop stick and goes to the ground. Okay, so now I want to show you a trapping we did with the remote control. Okay, so you saw he got out, right? So let's look at this in slow motion, the moment of truth, that is. And I want you to try to observe how the cat is moving and got pretty far before the drop trap started to come down. Okay, and here is the moment of truth. This is literally the instant, the 30th of a second before the drop trap started to fall. Now, if you had a string, would you pull the trap at this moment? Of course you wouldn't. Um, but look how well on the way this cat is to getting out. And here's the problem with the remote control. When you pull the remote, when you hit the trigger and it sends a signal to the motor, and the motor starts to pull the pin back, it makes a sound. And the amount of time it takes for the pin to pull back, which is less than a second, for a really wary cat like this one, that's an alert. He heard the engine, he heard the motor whirring, and this is how far he got before the trap started to drop. So that's the problem with the remote control. It's not going to be unless you've got this is a really athletic cat who's really quick. Problem is, often you're using the drop trap for these cats because they're extra wary, they're really tough, they won't go into a normal trap. They hear that motor go and they take off, like, as you can see, like a rocket. Most cats, this isn't going to be a problem. So I'm sure lots of people have had success with the remote control on most cats. But do be aware, if you get one like this cat who's extra feral and wary, he may well hear that alert and get out. Also, if the cat, in this case, he was in the perfect position to drop the trap. Had his head in the bowl, he was starting to eat. If you have a cat that's not perfectly positioned, let's say he's closer to the edge, but for whatever reason you decide, I'm going to try now, that sound of the motor, again, can give the cat an alert and enough time to get out. So we don't favor using the remote in this manner. Does that mean we don't like the remote? No, we just use it we prefer it in a different way. And that's this. It's using the remote control on the side door. And as you can see in this scenario, the drop trap is laid flat on the ground, so no prop stick, no string. And the side door is put on the remote with the pin holding up the side door instead of holding up the whole trap. And you need a special adapter for this, the side door bracket to hold the remote control in place. So you can get that for a few dollars at livetrap.com. Now, we talked about the psychology of drop traps and how one of the things that why it's an effective device is because the cats don't mind going under it as opposed to into a box trap. But this is not a box trap. This isn't a trap now with a 9-inch by 11-inch or 12-inch by 10-inch opening. It's 3 foot square. It's got a lot of space in there. It's not usually identified by cats as a trap. And you can see you can put a bunch of food in there and wait till a bunch of cats go in. So I'm going to show you a video that was made by a group in Brooklyn, TNR Utopia, who really uses this technique a lot. And as you'll see, they did 2 days of trapping. On the first day, they went out with normal box traps and did not do very well. So they came back the next day and set up the drop trap in this manner. So let's have a look at how they did. Okay, so there you see, and it's a much faster drop too, so that also mitigates the sound that a faster drop, a much smaller opening, less room places for the cat to escape. So we have found this to be a pretty effective use of the remote control. All right, so moving on to some other trapping techniques. Let's talk about mom and kittens. Now, what you're seeing in this slide is you're seeing a transfer cage that contains the mother who was just trapped under a drop trap. So there's the transfer cage to the right. The transfer cage is positioned so that the transfer cage is covered on all sides, as you can see, except for the side that faces the back middle of the drop trap. So this is we wanted to get the kittens after having caught the mom first. So this way, if the kittens want to get to their mother, they have to approach her and end up in the center back of the drop trap. And that's what happened with Jade actually caught 5 kittens, all 5 kittens using this technique. They all crowded together, tried to get close to mom, and then she was able to catch the whole family at once. Now you can do this also with if you catch the kittens first. You can put the kittens in the transfer cage, position it in the same way so the cage is towards the side of the drop trap, but the open side is in the middle, and get the mom to come that way. You can use this technique. You can use a carrier, but usually transfer cages are safer, for getting once you've caught the kitties. Trying to get them into a carrier can be pretty tough, especially if you don't want to try that with an adult. So good idea to have a transfer cage. You can use kittens to attract other kittens. Now, another technique we've used successfully to get mom or kittens into the transfer cage, if we're not using this technique, into the drop trap, if we're not using a transfer cage, we've actually used YouTube videos. So we were trying to catch a mom once. We had the kitten, but the kitten was very weak and so wasn't going to make any noise. So there was no point in putting her under the drop trap. So we played a YouTube video of a kitten calling for her mother, put that under the drop trap, and sure enough, mom came shooting over to check out what was going on. We were able to catch her that way. You could use kittens calling for the mom, audio of that. If you do a search on YouTube, you can find like anything. We've even used the calls of female cats in heat to draw tomcats into the drop trap. So, don't be afraid to experiment with that kind of thing. Okay, this is what we call the stubborn caretaker. And if you have been trapping enough, sooner or later you're going to come upon this person. And that's the one who, no matter how much you insist, do not touch the cats. They know them really well. They won't have any trouble picking them up and shoving them into your box traps with the narrow openings. So, and they'll do this despite repeated warnings about, bloody arms and fleeing cats, because almost always, as soon as they try to shove the cat into a box trap, the cat scratches them and they get away. So you can actually use the drop trap as a way to get around this if you just can't stop somebody from picking up the cats. And let me demonstrate. So there you see, if you have somebody who's grabbing cats, you can successfully catch them if they throw them, gently under the drop trap and do it that way as opposed to a box trap. Okay, finally, I want to talk about, and you know, Stacy, it looks like we will have time for cat trivia, so I'm going to encourage everybody to stick around. We'll take some questions, but Stacy runs a great cat trivia contest, and so stick around. We'll do that at the end of the presentation. We'll have a little bit of time for that. I want to talk about mass drop trapping, and this is something you can do when the cats in a colony favor they favor eating. Brian, you're muted. I'm not muted now, am I?
Sorry, no, you're fine. It was just during the video earlier that was all silent, and I didn't know if you were talking
Oh,
during the
okay.
video. Yep.
Oh, yeah. No, I had to take the music out because it was
Yep.
copyright infringement. So
Gotcha.
sorry about that.
No worries.
Um, okay, so when we do mass drop trapping, you can do this. That's drop trapping a whole bunch of cats at the exact same time. You can do this when the cats engage in what I call cluster eating. And this slide is an example of that. So these are colonies where pretty much everybody's related. They're very comfortable with each other. The caretaker puts out the food in like a big dish, and they all gather around together to eat. So you're looking for to use this approach of drop trapping a bunch of them at once. You're looking for cats that cluster together to eat. They have a regular, predictable feeding time, so you know when to set the drop trap up, and it's a larger colony, so there's a whole bunch of cats in there. Now here's a slide that shows you how you can get cats to cluster eat under a drop trap. You can see I think there's like 6 or 7 of them all gathered around a food bowl. Now in this instance, we were not actually trying to trap these cats because most of them, almost all of them were already fixed. We were down to like the last cat or two, but we had to put a big bowl of bait underneath the drop trap for obvious reasons, right? Because there were so many cats in this colony and we were just waiting for the 1 or 2 we needed to go in. But we kind of noticed how they all jammed in there together. So you can use that to your advantage. Now here's a slide where we were trying to catch a bunch of cats that were eating in a group. And you can see this is just as the drop trap was pulled and it's about to hit the ground. You can see there's actually 7 cats in that drop trap. So you can catch a whole bunch of them together in this way. Now, it can be tricky because you have to watch out for tails sticking out for anyone who's too close to the edge. It's really, this is something for advanced drop trappers. It's not something you want to do, when you're early on in trying this, but as you get more and more comfortable with the drop trap and you're able to kind of watch all these things happening at the same time, you can do it safely. Okay, so I want to kind of end this part of the presentation by going over a situation where we combined a lot of these techniques that I'm talking about, so you can get a sense of just like how sophisticated you can get with drop trapping. So I'm going to take you through this step by step. This is an aerial of the area where we were trapping, and you can see it's on the beach, a little in from the beach, and you can see where the arrow's pointing to a rock and debris pile. That's where this colony of cats lived. They lived in this pile of these concrete slabs and rocks. And what they would do is their feeders would come and they would put their food along the fence, which you see marked there. And the cats would come out of the pile and eat along the fence. And now just to the left of the pile, you can see there was a slope that kind of went up. And here's another angle just to give you more of an idea of what this situation looked like. So cats live in the pile. they crossed that narrow dirt pathway to eat along the fence, and they ate in groups. So they were clustered. This is a cat in the pile. You can see like how thick and dense it was. There's no trapping in the pile because too many uneven surfaces. And this is how close the fence is to that pile of debris. So just a short distance. So kind of breaking this into a schematic to help explain how we approach this situation. There you go. There's your pile of rocks, your fence, the feeding area, and the cats would move across to get to their food. Oh, no, sorry, went the wrong way. So what we did was also the ground was rough. So we used drop trap pads and 2 drop traps and put them in the feeding area. And then we had 2 trappers, as you see on the left there, who were down the path and pretty far away because this was a pretty feral bunch of cats. So we had to get them as far away as we could. And then we had a spotter to stand up on the slope with a pair of binoculars and just watch the traps and then signal when the time was to pull. But you could see that there was still a problem because now the cats, they were so kind of habituated. Their food had to be next to the fence. So the fronts of the drop traps had to face the rock pile. They couldn't face the trappers. So the prop sticks were at almost a complete 90-degree angle to the trappers. And normally that would be an impossible situation to get an effective pull. You'd be basically pulling the prop sticks sideways, and whereas you want to be pulling them head on in order to get an effective pull. So we kind of thought about that, and this is what we came up with, what we call the drop trap 360, just for the fun of it. But it's basically, it's a 10-pound barbell weight with a dowel jammed into the center where the barbell would normally go. And we took the string, as you can see, and wrapped it around the dowel. And that allowed, you can use this now to pull at any angle. And in fact, you could even be standing with behind the trap and pull if you use this hack. So now this is what it looked like. We had not just our drop trap pads, but we had our 360s, and the trappers were all set. So now we're going to show you what that actually looked like. Grab a blanket. Okay, so there you see. Now notice a couple of things in that video. Notice how patient the spotter was before she yelled pull. Uh, the cats at one point you saw, they all ran away. They heard some noise and that spooked them, but they came back, and that's often the case. That's why it's good not to get anxious and pull the drop trap too soon. It's better to let the cat wander out, not when they're not quite in position. You think maybe I can get him now, and then you decide not to pull, and he wanders out, and you go, oh, I missed my last chance. That's not going to be the case. They will almost always come back. But if you pull too soon and they have a really bad experience and they get out, then they're not coming back. So it's really important to be patient. And this was at the start of a mass trapping, so we were able to start the day by capturing 8 of them really quickly. So just to show you, how flexible and diverse the uses are for this piece of equipment. Okay, want to let you know that the next free webinar in this series that we'll be doing is Colony Caretaking Tips and Tricks, and that will be on Saturday, September 12th, also 2 hours. And you can register at this link. Again, download the handout, and you just have to click at it or go to the communitycatspodcast.com website and click on virtual education, and that will take you there. Community Cat Education and Training, I believe, is the page, and you can sign up for that. Also, to let you know, we monthly we offer TNR certification workshops where we go over the basics of trapping, a little bit about colony care, and we do certify people that they've attended this and completed the training. So the next one will be on July 10th. There's a $10 fee for that. So if you want to register or check out what other dates are coming, like I say, we do this once a month. Again, go to that same link, the Community Cat Care Training and Education page on the communitycatspodcast.com website. Okay, so at this point, we can take some questions. And like I say, then we'll have our cat trivia. You want to take it from here, Stacy?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. So we do have a few questions, and we'll take those before we dive into cat trivia. Everybody needs to get ready for that. So we have one question here. If you've previously trapped a cat that got out of the drop trap due to poor string timing, can she be retrapped, or is she going to be leery about going back in that trap?
Well, you can definitely try again. You might have to wait a little time. You might have to make her a little hungrier. You might have to try a different kind of bait. One of the first things that I would think of is if this cat is part of a colony, put out a big plate of food and wait, let some other cats go in, let her see other cats going in and eating, and then coming out again. But it usually happens so quickly that they don't much remember it. They probably won't be back that day, but if you wait a week or a couple of weeks and try mix it up a little, do something a little different, there's a very good chance they'll go back under.
Excellent. All right. I know you talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think this person might have missed it. So just to repeat, what are your opinions on the 2 different drop traps that Tomahawk sells?
Yeah, there's 2 models. There's the DT1, which is 3 foot square, about 91 centimeters square. And then there's the 4 foot square one, about 122 centimeters square. And we greatly favor the smaller one, and that's because of the weight. The smaller one is 14 pounds. The 4 foot square one is 26 pounds. And we think that there's a high risk of injury if you make a mistake and the trap lands on a cat with the larger trap. And if you do it correctly, the 3 foot is all you need. So we don't believe in taking that risk.
So this is a little bit more of a general question, but if somebody's interested in joining a TNR group, how would they find one?
Call your local shelter. They often know and work with local TNR groups. Do a search on Google for feral cat help for TNR in your area. But mostly just connect with somebody in the animal welfare community where you are, and they'll know who does TNR in your area.
Excellent. Lots of different questions about the remote drop trap and trying to reduce the sound of the, or how to desensitize the cats. Lots of different brainstorming. So I just mentioned that it
Okay.
seems like they want you to figure out how to make the remote drop
No,
trap work.
people love the remote control. It's just fascination with technology. Yeah, I mean, I like I say, with most cats, they're not going to be that wary and that quick. But those cats you'll probably have already caught with a normal box trap. So it's the tough cats that you often need to drop trap, and they hear the motor go off and that's it. But again, if you do a lot of remote drop trapping, if that's one of your main ways of doing it, hey, I think 9 out of 10 times, 19 out of 20 times, it's going to be fine. But I'd rather just pull a string and not take that risk.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to clarify, you just sort of mentioned a little bit about, the drop trap and its use. And it is one tool used for a targeted TNR project, but not the only tool. So person was asking,
Right.
like, say you go, you drop trap, you get 4 cats. Now, when is it okay to go back to get the rest of the cats? Where does the drop trap play in the process of doing a targeted TNR project?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we use drop traps for mass trapping in 2 ways. One is and that's why it's always good to visit the site and get to know the colony just a little bit before you do the trapping. If you see they're doing that cluster eating, like in the normal course of events, the caretaker puts out a big aluminum, pie plate full of dry food, and 6 or 7 cats are gathered around it and eating, then a light bulb goes off to us and we go, cluster eating. We could catch all 6 or 7 of those cats at once. And then we'll do a drop trapping at the beginning of a mass trapping to just knock off 6 or 7 of them. Sometimes we even had one trapping where we lined up 3 drop traps in a row and put pie plates of food in them because these cats all were used to eating in groups. And we had 3 people pulling 3 strings, and we caught 13 cats at the beginning of the night. And then we put out the box traps and did the kind of grind it out one by one trapping that you do. So if they're cluster eating, you can do that. You can drop trap at the beginning. Now, if they don't cluster eat, which a lot of colonies don't, they have their individual bowls or they come a little bit spaced out in time, then what we'll do is we'll put all the box traps out first, and we'll try to catch as many of the cats one at a time as we can. But when we get towards the end of the night and there's still a few cats hanging around, and for whatever reason they're not hungry enough or they're more wary than the others, they won't go into the box traps. So normally what you would do is say, all right, we'll be back tomorrow. They'll be a day hungrier. So instead of waiting till tomorrow, we break out the drop trap, because often if they won't go into a box trap, they will go under a drop trap, and we'll catch 3 or 4 of them at the end of the mass trapping and reduce the number of cats that we have to come back for. So either at the very beginning or at the end is when we do it. There are people out there who do nothing but the drop trap, who just will drop trap one cat after another, and do it that way. But that's fairly unusual. It's usually a combination.
So there's one person here that commented that she focuses on helping people find lost cats. And so she's utilizing the drop trap to help get that cat once that cat is identified
That's a
and
great idea.
located. So just mentioning, it's another use in the.
That's an excellent idea. Yeah, I'll include that in the future. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So in our desire to return to home, I think that it's another tool in the toolbox for sure. All right. Well, so I think we are going, oh, please repeat. Oh, the discount code for Tomahawk orders is DCNC21. That's the discount code, DCNC21. If for some reason you have a problem getting through that on the order, you could always just email them and they'll apply it to your order. They're really great. They're awesome. So feel free. Fine. It looks like all the questions are answered, and it sounds like Susie,
Great.
you're all set. Brian, thank you so much. Thank you. We will
Sure.
see you,
Thank you.
July 10th for our Trapper Certification Workshop. Feel free to reach out, folks, at Stacy at Community Cats Podcast if you have any questions. But thank you for learning about the drop trap, a trapper's best friend, and we can't wait to hear how it all goes for you. Please share your stories. Let us know how it all goes. All right. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.